Good afternoon and welcome to this edition of the People Progressing podcast. And today I have Eric Faddis, who's a lawyer here in Denver, and just really excited about it. I was fortunate to coach Eric in football back in the day at Thunder Ridge High School, and just really proud of his accomplishments and what he's doing now. And we're just going to kind of go through his journey to get to be a lawyer and be one of the top lawyers in Denver. And I'm just excited to have you on, Eric. Why don't you tell our audience where you're from, what you like to do as a kid, and kind of what motivated you as a kid?
Yeah, Coach White. Hey, thanks so much for having me on, man. This is I've watched a lot of these podcasts, and they're always really insightful and informative, and there's a lot of actionable stuff in there. So really, it's an honor to be on here. So thanks so much. I grew up in kind of Aurora, Colorado, so pretty much like 225 in Mississippi. Grew up there, went to Catholic school as a kid, and so I think that certainly had an impression on me. As a kid, I was always pretty competitive. I was always kind of achievement oriented. I always tried to maintain high standards, even as a kiddo. And so I think that sort of helped shape my journey. As you know, I've played sports and you coached me, and that was really formative as well. Kind of just instilling those values of discipline, of integrity, self-confidence. Those kind of things are just sort of fundamental values that I think have carried over into my adulthood and have helped me attain at least some of the success that I've been lucky enough to obtain. That's kind of where it started is Aurora, Colorado. And then I still live in Denver. We're still, I'm Colorado native, still out here in Denver, still repping for the city, man. So.
And how much, I know your parents, and they're very, very, very supportive of you and your brother. How much did their influence on you kind of shape where you're at now?
Yeah, I think that both of them were huge. As you know, and as we've talked, Coach, my dad, Jim Faddis, was not only at every game. Most kids don't have the privilege of having their parents be present so often in their sports careers, because of work or other obligations, whatever. But my dad, thankfully, with his schedule, he was a golf professional, and so he had some flexibility. And he was at not only every game, but darn near every practice. I'm telling you, he was there almost every day that I was out there putting in work. And just kind of, conveyed to me that, hey, there's someone in my corner, there's someone who's got my back. And I think that support system really helped propel me, because, you've got someone behind you who's cheering you on. And Coach, he was, my dad was one of the most vocal at
he was game. Awesome. He was awesome.
From, the other side of the stands. And so I think that was super helpful. And then, on my mom's side, she really conveyed kind of this standard of excellence for us. There's a level, and that's something to which we need to kind of aspire to meet. And I think that so that was really helpful in kind of shaping just my thoughts on how to be and how to act and how to perform and what goals look like and how do you reach them and how do you have kind of an actionable plan that you set out and then follow to its logical conclusion. And so those were, I think, some of the values that both my parents helped instill in me as early on.
And I think that's huge when you're talking about goals and a plan to get to the goal. I call it winning the process. And setting up that process to get to your goal is, in my mind, is gigantic. We're going to get into that because you have done that basically your whole life, including to what you're doing now. So when you graduated high school, did you know that you wanted to go into law, or were you still trying to figure it out?
No, I think it was in a very different place when I graduated high school. I think, there is some uncertainty for everybody. There's some insecurity. There's gosh, what if, I have all this freedom. What am I going to do with it? How am I going to use that? And to kind of better my life. And so, no, it took a few years after high school before I really solidified my intention to become an attorney. I'd always kind of flirted with the idea, and it always sort of appealed to me. But there was some searching there. There was kind of a journey that led me to it. And so it took a few years. I think sophomore year in college, maybe junior year in college, is when I really buckled down and said, all right, this is what I want to do. How in the world am I going to get there? What are the steps that I have to take? What does that path look like? And how can I best control for all the factors for which I can control in hopes of reaching that end goal?
So again, we talk about the plan or the process. What was your process? Well, you said it took you to your junior year, which most of us are like that. I mean, there's not too many of us that go into college and know what we want to do right away.
Right.
But you found a purpose and you found your passion. What led you to that? And then once you found that and you made up your mind, this is the direction I want to go.
Yeah.
What was the process that you took? Because you mentioned your plan. What was that process?
Yeah. So what I did was I kind of really just mapped it out. I had I had where I'm at right now, this, kind of a goofball, party in college kid, and where I want to be, which was a successful attorney. And so how in the world do I get from point A to point B? And so I did some research, right? I went on Google. I read some books that were like, how to get into law school, because, I realized in order to be a lawyer, you have to pass the bar. In order to pass the bar, you typically have to go to law school. In order to get into law school, you have to take the LSAT. In order to do well on the LSAT, you have to prepare for it. And so, I sort of had these are the steps. This is the progression. And then I started looking into what is the best LSAT prep course. And I found, one that really fit my schedule well. So I went there, and then I looked at, when is the best time to apply for law school? Is it right before the admission periods end? No, it's in the very beginning when they have hundreds of spots. They're more inclined to give them out, as opposed to when they have two, they're probably going to be a little bit more selective. And so I started looking at not only what the best path was, but what the best angles I could take along that path were.
Awesome.
And so that was sort of the finesse piece. I was able to you got the path, you got the steps, and then you kind of refine it. You kind of finesse it. You kind of make it work for who you are and what you want to accomplish. And so I found, when this is when I should apply. These are the schools to which I should apply. These are the ones to which I'm likely to get in. These are the ones that are going to be a reach. Once I'm in there, what is this school known for? How is this going to set me up for the professional community that I want to be a part of later on? And so these were all questions that I got this great book of, I think they were Harvard Law School admission essays, because I was like, because you got to write an essay to get into law school. And so I was like, what in the world am I going to talk about? Well, let me look at the ones that got people into the best law school in the country. And I sort of, borrowed bits and pieces and used those to get to where I wanted to go.
That is huge. And what I want people to get out of that story is the old saying, you start with the end in mind.
Yeah.
So once you figured out what your purpose and your passion was and what you wanted to do with your life in terms of getting into the law industry and being an attorney, then you said, okay, I want to be here. How do I get there? And you kind of went backwards with it. I think that's huge for people to understand, because what a great process you just did there. And to see, I want to go to this school, this school, this school. What does it take to get in? Getting the Harvard entrance exam or entrance essays to give your mind an idea of what to do. You talk about winning the process. You did that. I mean, that's amazing. What a great story. And then, so you went from your undergrad and you got into DU law. What was the challenges you faced once you got into DU law? Because that's a kind of a new area for you, correct? I mean,
oh, sure. And I think there, I didn't have a pre-law major, and most folks don't, and especially nowadays. And so going into it, it was a completely new environment. You're amongst not only just kind of like your regular peers, but kind of like some higher echelon folks, because it's hard to get into law school. So, it's hard enough to be in college and try to excel and do better than your peers or whatever. But when you're amongst some real heavy hitters, it sort of ups the ante. But that sort of motivates you. That kind of brings you up. You're like, heck, I'm part of this group. I got in just like these folks. I'm just as smart as them. I'm just as diligent. I can do this, man. And so I think that initially there was a bit of an imposter syndrome, a bit of an insecurity. And also just the workload. It's really oppressive. It's so much reading, and so all of that, and then there be new processes arose, right? So once I was in law school, I was like, how do I posture myself to get to the next step? And what sort of classes do I want to take? What sort of internships should I be applying for? And so there was a whole set of new decisions that I had to research and ultimately make. And so it was just kind of that new phase in my life at that time. And it was different, man.
That's awesome. So I want to go back. You got me all fired up now. Yeah. So I want to go back to the imposter syndrome, because I think everybody goes through that. Everyone. And if you don't, I think you're probably lying to yourself. But let's go back to that. When you had the imposter syndrome, I just got into DU Law School, which is Denver University Law School, which is a really top law school in the country. And you got into there, and all of a sudden you're like looking around going, do I belong? Can I do this? Is this really what I want to do? This is going to be hard. I don't know if I match up with that person or what got you through that? What drove you through that imposter syndrome? Does that make sense?
Yeah, of course. I think part of it was like commiserating with other people and because when we're feeling it, right, it's so personal. It kind of feels like this is something that I feel like everyone else is so confident. They're doing so great. I'm like, I'm freaked out. Am I the only one who feels like, all this doubt and anxiety and that kind of thing? And what I did was I talked with some folks and I said, heck, man, how are you feeling about this? We've got 80 pages of reading in this one class for one night homework. And, I've got 6 classes and how are you getting by? And they'd say, hey, Eric, man, I feel you, dude. I'm hurting too. And this is new to me too. And, but we're here for a reason. And I think you have to really kind of keep that reason close at heart. For me, one of those things was fighting for people who aren't in the best position to fight for themselves. I've always been kind of a fighter, and I've always said, gosh, Eric, this is tough for you right now, but I bet it's really tough for that person who is underprivileged or has never had access to the resources you've had, or is getting a really tough break in the legal system. It's extra hard for that person. So you've got to kind of rise up, Eric, and you've got to kind of just meet that standard that you've set for yourself. And so I think commiserating with other people, and then also just realizing what I'm here for, like going back to the foundational stuff, man. This is who I am. This is my reason. This is my purpose, and I've got to follow that. And I think those two things really help get me through and continue to help get me through. This is still a feeling. Heck, man, I feel it. I felt it this morning. And so it's sort of a lifelong struggle, but in a good way.
It's a challenge every day. And I'm going to go back because I know this sounds corny, but I have goosebumps right now because of what you're saying. That purpose. You went back when I asked you the question, what got you through your imposter syndrome? What got you through those self-doubting times of the first part of law school, and even now as an attorney, because I'm sure they're there now.
Oh, yeah.
What got you through? What got you through? And I have a saying that says, when your purpose is greater than yourself, you will find your passion and you will find your peace of mind. You got through it because you focused on your purpose that was greater than yourself. You said it. I did it for those people that didn't have the resources that I do, that might need me someday to help them, to guide them, to support them, to be their attorney, to be. So what propels you to get through that was something greater than yourself. Beautiful. because I wish our country was getting that more and more, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. Oh, I feel you. I think it's so easy to get caught up in day-to-day stuff. You've got kids, you've got a job, you get into a routine, and it's so easy to kind of get bogged down and stagnated in that, and to feel, a bit lost or a bit unfulfilled. And so I think, kind of knowing for yourself what those foundational principles are of your life, of who you are.
Yeah.
And going, on the weekend, take 30 minutes. It's easy. Just take 30 minutes and say, what am I about? What matters to me?
Yeah.
What do I want to accomplish? What are the values that I'd like to exhibit as a human being? And I think that really knowing yourself in that way can be a great sort of home base to go back to when we're all feeling that sort of insecurity and doubt.
It's awesome. So now we go through, we graduate from DU Law School. What first question on that is, what did that feel like for you?
Yeah. It was a huge thing, man. It was, because you see throughout the law school process, people are dropping like flies. Like it's a competitive process, and it's tough.
Yeah.
And so, and I think once you kind of reach that finish line, you say, I think they said something like, the statistics on it, something like less than, 2% of people graduate law school or whatever. And so it just kind of made you feel like, hey, you really like put your nose to the grindstone and you stuck it out, and it was scary, and it was hard, but you're better for it. It was character building. And now you have this awesome accomplishment and this platform from which you can at least try to excel to even greater heights.
Yeah.
And so, I've gotten, it's kind of like a level up. I was able to kind of level up and then look at this new expansive horizon and try to expand it even further and say, what does 10 years look like? I've graduated law school, now what? And so I think, it was just a really fulfilling accomplishment, and also like the closing of one chapter and the opening of a really exciting new chapter.
So what was your first job then out of law school? What was your first project or your job?
Yeah, I was lucky enough to where there's something called a judicial clerkship, and this is reserved for select folks in law school. And what you do is you're really just a legal advisor to a judge.
Okay.
And so I was lucky enough to get one of those judicial clerkships in Jefferson County, and I was a legal advisor to a judge, and it was great because you kind of saw behind the scenes. You kind of saw like how the sausage is made. I got to go back with the juries after a jury trial and talk with them and just say,
wow.
like, what did you think of the attorneys? Like, why did you decide the way you decided? And then also I got to do the same thing with the judge. And so I know at least how that judge made decisions, stuff that judge thought was important. And so, I sort of absorbed all of that and took it with me once I got into practice. And I felt like I kind of had the inside scoop because I was lucky enough to get that gig.
I'm going to go back just a little bit now, because you brought something up that's really interesting. When you got your first job and you're working for the judge in Jefferson County, you got to go back and speak to the jury. You got to speak to the judge and just learn and learn and learn and learn. When did that, because you mentioned your first 2 years of undergrad were kind of out there, kind of partying and kind of doing all that.
Exactly.
When did that real growth mindset kind of change for you? Does that make sense? So like you talk about, you got really excited when you were talking about, I got to talk to the jury, I got to talk to the judge, and I got to learn and learn and learn and learn. Yeah. When did that blow up for you? Does that make sense?
Yeah, of course. I think in college, I was doing college guy stuff.
Yeah.
And I, it was getting to the point where I was taking risks, and I was, not always making the best decisions. And some of those decisions were sort of, I was realizing the consequences of those. And so I think it was kind of like, okay, you've got to kind of grow up. And don't get me wrong, I'm still not grown up. I still, that's also a lifelong process. But I think in the middle of college, I was kind of like, if you want to do something special, like you've always felt, Eric, like you've always I've always kind of felt in something special, and that I could do something special. If you're going to do it, you've got to like start hustling, man. You got to start making moves. You got to have a plan. You really, because if you don't, you're just going to be, you're going to be in your 40s doing, still doing this stuff. And that's not the best, the best look, So, so I think like it was sort of when some of those decisions, I started realizing the consequences of those decisions, and really just made, it was time for me to make a transformation. And thankfully I was able to mostly pull it off.
And when you found your purpose of, hey, I can help these people as an attorney, I can help these people. How much did that fuel your growth and progress in terms of learning and growing and getting it all and being a sponge and learning all that? How much did the purpose and passion play into your growth and progression?
Yeah, it was, especially getting feedback now from clients and stuff, because it is so driving for me. I remember in college when I was considering law school and I was considering going, post-grad in psychology. And I was like, if I become a psychologist, I can maybe, do the study that, maybe a governmental staffer might spill some coffee on and, not look at it or whatever. Or I can go to law and I can, have a direct impact on these human beings. They come to us on like their worst day, or at least one of the worst days of their life. They're either charged with a crime or they've been seriously injured through no fault of their own. And so they're hurt, man, they're feeling it and they don't know what to do. And so, to talk with them and to provide that peace of mind, to provide that shelter, that protection, and to also, because a lot of these folks haven't always had somebody who's there to protect them, to look out for them, to go to bat for them. And so to have the privilege of being in that role for other people and to execute effectively and have them come back to you and say, like, Eric, you saved my life, man. You like this, and I think that's a bit generous, but to hear that is just, it's like, oh, this is why I do what I do. Like these, their life is at least somewhat better because I was in it. And like, what other meaningful life purpose is there? Like that's huge for me. And so, yeah, it kind of keeps me going.
And that just keeps you growing and progression all the time.
Yeah.
So after you worked for the judge in Jefferson County, did you went into you worked in Denver? Is that right?
Yeah. So I worked. I interned for a number of places. The Denver District Attorney's Office, which is the prosecutor's office there. Interned in the gang unit and some other places, and then I was hired by George Brockler at the 18th Judicial District as a prosecutor. And so I was prosecuting crimes, and did that for quite some time, thought that was a great fit, realized over a number of years that it wasn't. It really became stifling and somewhat problematic. But I also, gained so many lessons and such great experience from that role. It was invaluable for me. But yeah, that's where I went after the judge's clerkship, was to the 18th Judicial District to be a prosecutor, prosecuted thousands of cases from, traffic stuff all the way up to first degree murder. Worked in their special victims unit for a while doing, that kind of work. And then sort of saw the light and went to the criminal defense and personal injury side.
It's all growth.
Yeah.
Everything is growth. Everything that you've done is you've taken every experience and gotten the most out of it because you opened your mind to growth. And that's what I want people to understand about your journey. Your journey has come because you found your purpose in serving and helping others. And during that journey of serving and helping and having that purpose of helping others, you just wanted to keep growing and expanding because you wanted to keep helping. You wanted to keep serving. You wanted to keep. So now you're in criminal law. So now you've switched.
Right.
What's the difference?
Yeah. What I started to realize at the prosecutor's office is, at least in my humble opinion, I think that there is a bit of an over-policing problem, a bit of an over-prosecution problem. We've gotten to a point where we're so quick to kind of brand somebody with a scarlet letter and cancel them for shoplifting, or 50 years ago, if someone got a shoplifting ticket, that was something they dealt with, and then they moved on with their life and they were fine. There wasn't this sort of records keeping that we have now. And so, but now, if you get a shoplifting conviction or something like that, that could drastically restrict your abilities to succeed. And so what I try to do now is I try to preserve people's futures. I'm not trying to get a bunch of factually guilty people off with no consequences. That's not the vision. The vision is really to ensure that these folks' rights are protected and try as best we can to preserve their future and to give them, to leave open opportunities for them down the road so that they can thrive and be productive members of society. And so that's been a big difference, is instead of, kind of impairing folks' futures, I like to think that I'm at least trying to help protect them.
Give them a second chance. Give them give them hope. Give them a future that they deserve to go after. So I asked you this question the other day off the air. What is it like? This is kind of a deep question, but what is it like to be an attorney for somebody that you're pretty sure is guilty? It's a great question. Is that a fair question for you? I don't want to put you on the spot.
100% is. Oh, no. I get that question all the time. Look, for me, I have a client in a case, right? But probably my biggest client in my career is the United States Constitution. Okay, and that Constitution says that when there's an accusation made by the government, we don't just roll over and accept it, right? We don't just believe it to be 100% true and then condemn the person and throw them away, cast them aside, and we're done. No. In this country, the founders structured the Constitution beautifully, such that we've got to provide checks on the government. There are times when the government gets it wrong. There are times when private citizens get it wrong in terms of accusations. But the only way that we're going to be able to ensure an accurate outcome is if we're vetting those allegations. We're vetting the government's case. We're pushing back. And so that's what I do, is I provide a check on the government, is the way that I see it. If I provide that strenuous check and the government still convicts the person, well, great, the system worked. And the government, this case was vetted and it stood up to scrutiny and it resulted in a conviction, fine. If I vet the government's case and provide that scrutiny and it falls apart, well, then that's not a solid basis on which to convict a person in this country. And so that is kind of how I see my role as a check on the government in the criminal defense sphere.
And now you've also parlayed this into you're on court TV all the time, and I love watching you on court TV. How did that all come about?
Yeah, that I think I really wanted kind of a bigger mouthpiece. I have all these ideas percolating, man. I got these feelings, and I want to get them out there. And I think that some of them might be able to help some folks, or at least provide some insight, empower folks with education. And so I wanted a bigger mouthpiece. And so I said, I love court TV. I've been watching this since I was a kid. And I kind of did this sort of DIY guerrilla tactics approach where I found the host on LinkedIn. This is a great tip for anybody who wants to connect with somebody, because in the past, people on TV, it was very hard to reach those folks. You didn't know who to call. You call, 9 News, and they hang up on you or whatever. But here on LinkedIn, I messaged the host and I said, hey, look, I love what you're doing on Court TV. I've been watching it since I was a kid. And I love, the insight y'all provide. I think I can do this. I think I can do this well. Give me a shot. Just put me on there once. And if you don't, if it doesn't go well, you don't have to have me on again. And so thankfully, Vinnie Politan, the host of one of the Court TV's primetime shows, gave me a shot. And he said, hey, I'll have my booker hit you up. And we did it, and I prepared, and I was ready to roll, and I executed. And ever since then, I've been on Court TV about once a week as well as a number of other media ventures. And we're just rocking and rolling on that piece.
It's fun to watch you because you give such great insight to these cases that you make us, you really make us think differently about each case. And that's what I like about it, because I think you see things on TV and you see it kind of just one way.
Right.
But when you get somebody on there like you, who's given a different perspective, a perspective of someone who's been there, done that as an attorney, it really gives you a different perspective and makes you kind of look at the whole thing instead of just at it one way, if that makes any sense.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
And here's the other thing I want to ask you, because I think this is so, you are now a partner in your own law firm.
Right.
So I want to go back. You went to your undergrad, kind of going through it, day by day, whatever. And then your junior year, you kind of started figuring out, hey, I got to get my act together. And all of a sudden you just started taking risk after risk after risk. I'm going to go to law school. I'm going to take the LSAT test to get into law school. Once I get in law school, I got to keep challenging myself. I got to read 80 pages in one night. All these things that happen to you. Then you went to work for a judge. Then you work as a prosecutor. Now you own your own law firm. You're on court TV. What has propelled you to take those risks along the way?
Yeah, I think
it's a beautiful story.
I think it was something that my maxim that my dad conveyed to me at a very young age. And I think at the time I didn't quite understand it, or I was like, Dad, what are you talking about? But now it rings so true. And that maxim is, do things that scare you. That is, and I'm not the first to say it. My dad's not the first to say it, but it is so true. That is the growth space, right? If you're leaning into fear, if something is scaring you, that's probably use that as an opportunity. Use that as a chance to grow and to build character. And my gosh, even if it doesn't go well, you can say you got in there and slugged it out. You can say, hey, I did that, man. And I think that that's been a huge driving factor for me. Even when I get an email and it'll say, like from the lawyers professional organization, it says, who wants to come present on sealing records and cases or something. And maybe I don't know a whole lot about sealing records and cases, but that's the reason that I should be jumping at the chance to do that, because it helps me learn that subject matter. It gives me get those reps in for presentation, for being an orator, which is part of my job. And so I think like leaning into fear, doing those things that scare you has made all of the difference. And I have my dad to thank for that.
What a great story. I have a saying, you've heard me say it before, probably, it's fear, regret. And you just kind of answered that. Exactly. You don't, go into it. If you fail, you fail. At least you learned, and you're not going to have regret later on to know, God, I wish I would have tried that. Now all of a sudden you're living in regret, because I want people to understand this too. You haven't always, not everything along this journey has been perfect for you. I mean, I'm sure there's been setbacks and all that kind of stuff. And you just keep challenging yourself and you keep overcoming. That's what I want people to really get from the story too, is it's not like Eric said, well, I'm going to go to law school and then all of a sudden straight A's. I'm going to go and be an attorney and I'm the top attorney in Denver. There's always challenges and roadblocks along the way. What were some of those that you had to face?
Oh, yeah. I think when, especially folks who try to be high achieving, at least for me, I get super bummed out when I really set a goal and it just doesn't happen, Yeah. And so like, for example, I remember in law school, I made it to what's called the law review, which is this like snooty academic journal that I think is meaningless now, but it was really important at the time for me. And so I made it on there, and I really wanted this board position on there. I was like, hey, you made it to law review, good for you, but get to the top. You gotta reach the top. That's you, Eric. And I tried my butt off to get to the top, and I didn't get that board position. And I was pretty bummed, because I was like, gosh, you tried as hard as you could, and you didn't even get one of the lower board positions. You didn't get anything. You're just a regular person on the law review. And so I think, but now I realize, like, I learned a lot from that process and from that loss. One thing I learned after the fact was I would have never wanted one of those board positions. There's so much extra work that they're virtually meaningless, like five years out of law school. But it also, that process helped me get to know the board members better, some of whom I still keep in touch with. And it also just showed me that, hey, you can take some losses and still bounce back, man.
Yeah.
You can do some other really cool stuff. Like, I didn't get the board position, but I got that clerkship, which is like a coveted thing, you know? I think another one was when I was a prosecutor and the caseload was so burdensome and I felt so stifled. I felt like I've got all these ideas for making things better. And when I share them, people get mad at me and they didn't like that I didn't go up the chain of command. I went straight to the elected, because that's me, man. I'm gonna take action. If I see a path, I'm gonna take that path. And so I became stifled, but then I made a pivot and I went to this really prestigious Denver law firm to do criminal defense, and it helped shape who I became as an attorney. And I just realized that, hey, you can have this adversity, you can have these losses, and you can pivot, you can kind of shuck and jive and move and reposition yourself, reinvent yourself.
Yeah.
And so I think that's what I've kind of tried to do in those times of adversity.
God, that's awesome. So my book's the 3 Ps, finding your purpose, perspective, and passion. So I'm going to ask you these 3 questions. What's your purpose in life? You kind of mentioned it, but.
Yeah, I think my purpose in life, I think one of them is to perform as close to my standards as I can. So if I go into a trial and I slug it out and I did all the research and I did all the prep and I listened and I executed and I tried my darndest in that trial, and I really think I performed at an extremely high level to which I hold myself, then that's a win, man. So I think, at least trying to perform to my own high standards. And then also just people, just like having some sort of an indelible mark on someone else's life in a positive way. That is like, I mean, my gosh, talk about a purpose, talk about a reason for being. If you can contribute something to someone else's existence, that's like magic to me.
That's awesome. I'm going to jump over to passion now. What's your passion in life?
Yeah, I think passion, is really, I've said this before, kind of being a fighter, kind of like, when I remember when I was a kid and like I would see somebody getting picked on and I'd be the one to jump to intervene and say, hey, this isn't right. And, if you want it with me, you can have it with me. But I think it's been kind of fighting for other folks and really using what God has given me to try and be a voice to others and protect them and shield them and assert their rights. Those are things that I'm really passionate about.
Okay, and so I say purpose equals passion and passion equals purpose, because you just showed that. Yep. The thing that holds it together is your perspective. So what's your perspective on life?
I think that I'm starting to really try to become more humble. That's one thing I'm really working on, and I think being more humble, having that humility, realizing that we are all in this fight together, man. This is, it's, and what we need to be doing is kind of being loving towards one another and respectful and encouraging. And so I think that, having that perspective that I'm not above anybody, man. We're all humans and we're all at that human level.
Yeah,
and to the extent that we can come together and leverage our collective skills and motivations and resources, I think that can really result in some beautiful outcomes and some synergistic outcomes. And so I think having that perspective of being humble and knowing that we're all in this together and how do we use that?
Beautiful.
Those are things that are helpful for me.
And staying in that humble mindset keeps you in that growth mindset. People who are not humble, who think they know it all, they don't stay in that growth mindset.
Yeah.
And the clock never runs out on growth and progression ever. And you can keep growing and learning and progressing all the way to the end. And
Right.
staying humble keeps you in there. So I just
Totally
love what
right.
you've said today. You know, Eric, you've helped a lot of people today. Just motivating them, inspiring them. You know, I don't really think that you can motivate people, but I do think you can inspire people to motivate themselves. So
Yeah.
I'm sitting here listening to this and I'm trying to figure out where I want to go in college. I'm sitting here listening to this and I'm 30 years old and I'm still trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
I'm sitting here listening to this. I'm 40 years old and I'm still trying to figure it out. And I listened to your story and how you overcame things and how you jumped in and went for challenges after challenge after challenge. It inspires me to go for it. Doesn't matter how old you are. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter what you want to do. You can still go for it. You can still get that challenge in your life and grow from every opportunity that's put in front of you. And that's what you presented to people today. And I think it's beautiful. I am so proud of you and what you're doing, not just as an attorney, but what you're doing for the people and what you're doing for our community. You said it before. One of your jobs is to help your people that your client to get to be a productive member of society. And as a teacher and a coach, that's all I worried about as well. I wanted the kids I coached, the kids that I taught to be productive members of our society, to help each other, guide each other, support each other, empathize with each other, and bring out value in each other because we all have such high value. It could be different things that we're great at, but are you bringing that value out in people so that they can be productive members of society? And that's what you're doing. And I think it's beautiful, and I'm really proud of you.
Thank you, man. Yeah, I mean, I of course felt, I really felt similarly about you and about you being a coach. You always kind of brought in that philosophical perspective of like, you know, what's the lesson here? What's the value here? Why are we doing this? And how should we be towards one another and towards ourselves? And so I just you know, applaud you for your efforts as well, man.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that because that's what I love to do, and that's what I love to do now.
Yeah.
And this podcast and what you've said on this podcast and your example to people is going to help so many. And I just appreciate it. I'm really proud of you and what you're doing for our community. And just keep it up. Just keep doing great things. And if there's, you know, we'll be talking more and more. And what is there a day that they can see you on Court TV, or is it just kind of sporadic?
It depends on the week. It really really varies. Let me see when the next time I'm on. I think I can get my calendar here. Looks like the next time I'm on is Thursday, January 20th, 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. It's 10 a.m. to 12 a.m. Eastern time, but 8 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. I'll be on Court TV just talking it up, and it's cool because it's kind of like ESPN, but for court. You know, we're commenting on like how the attorneys are doing, how the refs are doing, and it's fun. So check it out. And if anyone ever wants to reach me or has a question or whatever, you can absolutely hit me up. My law firm is Varner Faddis Elite Legal. We're on the internet and Instagram and whatever else. So please get in touch with me, and I'm happy to have those conversations free of charge, of course.
Oh, thank you so much, Eric, and appreciate all you're doing. And thanks for coming on today. You made a difference. I appreciate that.
It's been an honor, Coach. Thanks so much for having me, man. Yeah.
Thank you for listening to the People Progressing podcast today with Eric Faddis. That was unbelievable. Just want to tell you that we're starting our new year off. This was our first episode of season 2, and just appreciate all your support and help. And you can get a hold of me through CoachJoeWhite97.com. You can get my book on my website, and I can come speak or work with your groups. Love to do that. So have a great day, and I hope to hear from you soon. Bye-bye.